Butternut squash pie is a nice alternative to pumpkin pie because it's basically the same thing with a subtle difference in flavor. Since you can't buy it in cans as far as I know, I'm starting with a fresh butternut squash. Using the very scientific way of measuring, I can see that the top part is about the same size as a can. Isn't that convenient? Okay, actually I think I need a little extra. The typical way to prepare any squash for use in a pie would be to roast it, but I'm preparing it in a less conventional way. These long strips that I'm cutting will be super handy for grating. Okay, this is a miserable experience, given the type of grater that I have. If you have one of those box graters, I can't imagine this would be nearly as bad. I'm using different camera angles to make this more engaging to the viewer, and I'm making excuses to take breaks from grating. Anyway, instead of roasting it, my plan is to cook it on the stove, and I want it in small pieces that will cook fast. By the way, the pie dough is chilling in the fridge while I do this. It's just basic pie dough made out of flour, vegetable shortening, and cold water. Now I'll just chop these end pieces down as small as I care to get them. Perfect. This pan is over medium heat. 2 tablespoons is a perfect amount of butter to add to this pan because that's how much is left of this stick. I may have had the heat too high because it got dark pretty quick. I better make sure I get all that squash in there before it burns. The flexibility of the paper plate makes it easy to get all the squash in the pan without spilling too much. I stir it around to clean up the bottom of the pan. It looks like I avoided burning the butter because nothing is stuck down there. That's about a teaspoon of salt there. After that I add 3/4 cups of sugar. Watch how quickly the water gets pulled out of there. And there's quite a bit of it too. That's good because it'll help disperse the heat and allow the squash to cook more evenly. I let it heat up until it's bubbling pretty good, and then I turn the heat down and let it simmer for 10 minutes. Now I'm going to check and see how tender the squash has gotten. It has gotten pretty soft. If I wanted to create extra dirty dishes, I could blend it, but it breaks up well enough after a bit of aggressive stirring, and that's good enough for me. So I'll stop here and turn the heat off. This needs to cool down enough to put the eggs in, so now is a perfect time to make the pie crust. I'm reusing footage from my carrot pie video because I don't feel like moving my camera just to film myself doing basically the same thing. Although this time I did better at rolling out the crust. There was a lot less cracking and I didn't have to crumple it up and start over. This time I stored the dough in a disc shape rather than a ball shape, and I think that helped. At this point I am also more practiced. I like chilling the dough in a bag like this rather than wrapping it in plastic wrap because you can reuse these bags. Just turn them inside out and wash them with soap. It's kind of a pain, but it's worth it to keep them out of the landfills as long as possible. And as usual, I don't bother to flute the edges. Maybe one day I'll start caring about that. This should be about cool enough to put the eggs in now. I clean the pastry board to give it a little more time. Now would be a good time to add the pumpkin spice to taste. I tend to not measure spices or other flavor additives such as vanilla, but I think 1.5 to 2 teaspoons is typical for pumpkin pie. I'm aiming for a strong pumpkin spice flavor that is on the threshold of being too much since this is going to be diluted by additional ingredients. I think it can use a little more. That's probably more than normal, but that's okay. As far as I'm concerned, spice amounts are suggestions. Now for the eggs. These are straight out of the fridge, so that should protect them from the heat that is left in this pan. Just to be safe, I'll stir them in quickly. I don't have evaporated milk on hand, but I have powdered milk and regular milk. There must be some ratio of those two ingredients that will yield something with the same water content as evaporated milk. I'm guessing, probably incorrectly, that a half cup of each will do the trick. Realizing in hindsight that the standard can of evaporated milk is 1.5 cups, I didn't add enough to equal the total amount of what that would have been. I also start preheating the oven to 425 degrees Fahrenheit, which I could have started sooner because this is ready to go into the pie crust. This is when I start to suspect that I guessed the wrong amount of milk to add when I noticed how low this is. Here it goes into the oven for 15 minutes at 425 degrees Fahrenheit. Now that the 15 minutes are up, I'll turn it down to 350 degrees Fahrenheit and set the timer for 30 minutes. Time is up and it appears pretty solid, so this is done. Looks pretty good, but it has this weird stuff on top. It almost looks like a film that rose to the top and baked on. It seems more cosmetic than anything. You can see some of those larger pieces in there, but they were unnoticeable when I tried this. And I could have avoided them if I wanted to by just not adding them. Now, would I recommend this method over roasting the squash and pureeing it? I'd say it depends. Most of the work is in the grating, and if that isn't something you mind doing, butternut squashes are a convenient variety to use with that long column of solid squash that they have. So if you are someone who likes to have more hands-on experience when baking rather than waiting around, this might be for you. Now, I think doing this with an actual pumpkin and getting it into grateable pieces would be an act of self-torture. Using a cheap grater like I did made this harder than it needed to be, but overall I feel like it was worth it. This was a little denser than other pumpkin pies that I have had, and I am almost certain that that is because I didn't add enough milk. It's not bad, just different. The texture I got for this pie would be good if you were making a pumpkin pie in the form of a dessert bar, where you want it to be a little more solid so you can eat it by hand. Without having a typical pumpkin pie to compare it to side by side, I can't say I noticed a huge difference in taste. To me, the end product in and of itself isn't enough to justify using this method, but I do think it is more convenient than roasting, at least for butternut squash. So this is a method I see myself using in the future. The roasting method seems easy on the surface, but then you have to wait all that time for it to cook, then you gotta let it cool down enough to touch, then you gotta scoop it out, and if you're trying to get as much as you can, the spoon goes through the other side and pulls off bits of skin, and then you gotta mash it all up. Pick what works best for you, or just use cans like everyone else.